the Diablo Canyon nuclear power plant was being proposed at San Luis Obispo, or being built, and then the MX missile was being launched from Vandenberg Air Force Base, which is north of Santa Barbara on the coast. First strike missile, if you remember back in the Reagan era, those of you who were alive then. Some hard years. Although Reagan seemed quite reasonable compared to crop. And I just got thrown into that. The Iranian hostage crisis occurred, where the Iranian Revolution, throughout the Shah that the U.S. had been backing the dictator for years, the Ayatollah came in, and they have the Revolutionary Guard, they seized the American embassy, and all of a sudden Carter, Democratic president, was reinstating draft registration for military conscription in '79, just 4 or 5 years after the end of the Vietnam War had occurred, and they stopped conscription after all that anti-war activity for a decade, culminated in the end of the war, stopped the draft, and now it was like, we're going to start the draft again. So, and I was peak draft age with 3 brothers behind me who were right at draft age too, and so I just got really active, and it spun me out due to the particulars of where I was in the moment in history, and I became very active in what was this. For those of you who would remember, there was the anti-nuclear movement was massive. It was unlike anything. I mean, it was on the heels of the anti-war movement, the civil rights movement just before that. But Kendall said there were hundreds. We had multiple summers. We had many thousands of people arrested at the nuclear power plant, just rolling day after day after day. And I spent months and months in jail. One time I was in 6 trials at once because I kept going back. You know, I was young enough, didn't matter. So I didn't have anywhere else to go. And it was wonderful. And I spent, like, they'd send me somewhere for 3 weeks in jail, and you come out and get back in. And we were just shutting that problem down. And the people that I got schooled by in terms of social movements were elders who came out of the civil rights and the anti-war and the peace movement and the War Resisters League and the feminist movement. And it was a wonderful education for me as a young man in process, in group decision making, where you have 300 people who've got to make a decision right now, because you can see the columns of troops are literally marching towards us, and it's going to get either ugly or nice, or what are we going to do? And we got to develop, so we develop systems to make quick decisions, and small groups, affinity groups, and spokes councils to make big decisions with lots of people. This Occupy Wall Street is a kind of another round of that kind of situation, where all of a sudden there's thousands of people showing up all in every little town in the country, out of the blue, half or more, first time they've been out. That's great, cutting their teeth somewhere. And they're like, my name's Dave. My name's Dave. It's like, okay, we all do that. That's brand new. How long do we have to do that? I mean, it's like, great. You know, it's a solution to a problem. And for me, for a bunch of us, we came out of that. The start of this place, that movement and that Gandhian and feminist-inspired and ecological consciousness-inspired processes of organizing. And one of the places that landed culturally for me and Adam, who you'll meet, and Susan, who's here, and Brock, and others, was to try to form more cooperative living situations on the grand tradition of intentional communities in American history, much of it being religiously oriented, Shakers and Quakers and others, and then the guru pieces in the 60s, political ideology often, and we were trying to spin out some version of that was just more appropriate than, and also resonating with the political work we were very involved with. So the founding of this place is very much on the heels of social movement activity, and the design of how we organize ourselves. It's very permacultural, it turns out, although we didn't know that word at the time. And it's basically, there's a handout I'll give you that is this. So you don't have to, like, if you thought you might, you don't have to write this down. Pass those out. And as a courtesy, by modeling, I 3-hole punched that for your binders. No, not to say aren't I good, but rather that trying to be attentive to a session I'm going to do, make it work by making it able. You do have 3-ring binders, right?
Yes.
Yeah, good. So look at this with me. I'm just going to walk through a design situation. So this is one of the main ideas I want to give you, and there might be 8 or so during the session, is circles of decision making. I think it's one of the best states of consciousness about how you manage process. So here's the setup. Around here we have 27 or so people living here. There's another couple dozen that come to work here. Some people go off-site to live here and work. There's a whole, and then you all show up, and then you all leave. And there's this oscillation of population. We have 5,000 people roll through here during the year for a tour or a 2-week course or anything in between. And then there's a bunch of us that live here on very different terms. I am one of the owners of the land with this LLC called Sewing Circle. There are 10 of us adults, and we have 6 kids amongst us. And at the other end of the residential spectrum, there are some interns that are just here for 6 months, a summer internship. And there's 9 months, and there's 12 months interns, and there's some long-term staff, and all kind of different categories. So what do you do with that? How do you figure out decision making? I interviewed one of the potential interns yesterday, and what we've learned to say in advance is here's when you come in, you are here, and you're not here, and it's not because you're not valuable or better than I or more ideas than I. That's not the question. It's what's the appropriate circle of decision making for you or you or you to be in on in a complex ecology of organization. But most things are like this. Most workplaces or spiritual traditions or dance clubs or anything has multiple places, and we've all been in this space where you go to a meeting and there's 6 of us, and I'm the weird one out. Often it's around power. Like we do a school garden teacher training program here for years. Lots of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of teachers have come through our program, and I do a little session on team building. And there's a classic thing that happens at schools because of their hierarchical structure. There's a principal, and maybe there should be, or maybe there shouldn't be, but there is a principal. And the meeting of the 5 of us, the year 4 of the teachers, and I'm the garden coordinator, I'm the volunteer or the parent or something, and we're meeting on the garden, and then in walks the principal. And it's like, okay, there's the principal, and now basically power has just shifted, authority has shifted, responsibility has shifted, and the principal is so acculturated to walking into the room like the boss, and everyone sort of snaps to him and brightens up, they get off the internet, and it's as if that's the world. That's the way Mitt Romney walks through the universe. That's why he would be so just bombastically idiotic in saying, well, my wife has 2 Cadillacs, and so some of my friends own I'm not much for NASCAR, but some of my friends own NASCAR teams, and he's just trying to buddy up to the people. And did you see the picture? Like the one group of African Americans he's seen in the last decade. They're like in Brooklyn, and they're these like just urban black people, and he's like, who let the dogs out? Woof. Woof. And he said that, and while he's hugging these African American women, and that was his way to identify with black people. It was like a 15-year-old song that one of his staffers told him, say that'll hook you in with the black people, the urban. And it was just like, wow. But why is he like that? Because everywhere he goes, he's preceded by the stench of money and the hunger of wealth, and that you want in, you don't want to offend, and if you offend, you might be fired, or so your whole family may be banished from the state. And so the principal walks in, and it all shifts. And so the principal sits down. I've got 15 minutes, and we're in an hour-and-a-half meeting. It's like, oh, our meeting's fucked now. It's over, because I'm going to talk, because that's what I do when I come to meetings as the principal. I was calling you as the principal. Now I'm the principal. You're fired. And then I'm going to leave. And it will just be all confusion. We didn't stick around for the process, the decisions, the listen, all this stuff. So who should be in which meeting? That's the question. So here's a model where we have 4 circles of decision making, and there are many others, but these are the dominant ones. We have our 80-acre site and our community. There are people that live here. And each person is represented by a dot. That's actually who's here. That group has some business together, has some life together. And everybody should have a voice. I mean, some of them are children. And so they have a different voice, especially Sabine, who you've met, and she has like the biggest voice and the most interesting for sure. The little blonde girl, Adam, and Katie's daughter. And so, but she shouldn't be on the decision about how we refinance the mortgage. But you should definitely listen to her when she says, "Dave, come here, I want to show you something." He's like, "Stop and go with Sabine. It's going to be better than whatever I was doing." But all of us have stuff. So we negotiate things like the dump run and the compost and the things and cooking when you're not here, when it's just the community cooking, rotating through who does dishes, life stuff like your home, your housemate, your family. The LLC is a subset of that whole large group that lives here, and that's only 10 of us. And we actually have the responsibility and the problem, liability, and the wealth of ownership, meaning we pay the mortgage. And so we're here, the kids don't, but like Kelsey, my boy, and Kendra's boy, he shouldn't sit in on the decision making about what are we going to do about the tree that's creaking and it goes down, it's going to cost us, it's bigger than we can handle, so we're going to have to hire a couple $1,000. Oh shit, we don't have 1,000, it's everybody, $200 more to just take a tree down, because then we don't want to take the tree down, it's going to hurt somebody, so, and that happens over, and then the sudden oak death comes in, because the externalized cost of free trade brings the pathogen Phytophthora morum from Hunan province in China through the aluminum tube of FedEx that could never have happened in the history of evolution of life on Earth until 30 years ago. And it's temperature controlled, flies out of some regional airport, brings it on the boots of the guy loading up the thing, all the way over, lands in San Jose airport, express, perfect temperature control, and then gets on a wheel, drives up here, and now of fungus that couldn't, spirochete that couldn't have moved, 80 feet locally is now moved across the world in 14 hours, and all of our oak trees are dying, our coast live oaks. Like, oh no, 50 million years of oak evolution, and on my watch, they're all going to die. And then go out in the forest, as you've been walking, and it's sort of like, look at all these dead trees. Like those big ones go down, and it's like you got to kind of move them out. And they're also reservoirs for some species that love that. The woodpeckers are going to do better. But that costs a lot of money. Who's going to decide what to do about that? And should we inject the trees? Should we? What do we do? It's like, oh, let's don't get Sabine in that. Let's don't burden her with that yet. Let's do the interns. Where are they? The interns. They come. OAC interns. They're part of the land, but they're not part of that because as smart or not as any particular intern might be, to be on the long arc of financing the situation with sudden oak death and reconciling what trees we're going to plant, how are we going to do that. They certainly could have ideas, but to have them in for 15 minutes, meaning 6 months, and then out, and have somebody else take their place would be a shock that would really be problematic for this organization's ability to do what it needs to do. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So when the interns come in, we tell them, you don't get to sit in on the most important meeting on the land regularly, once a week or once every week and a half. And that's not because we disvalue you, it's because it's an inappropriate circle of decision making. And we show them this. And if somebody's like, y'all are power tripping, it's like, whoa, then you shouldn't live here. It's like, we may be, but we should just, if you can appreciate this, then come on in. If you can't, or you don't want to, or you disagree, that's fine. But you're not for us right now. We're not for you right now. The important thing is there is transparency. Nobody wants to be jumped with this later when they thought they were moving into a community of decision making. Then we have the Arts and Ecology Center, the nonprofit 501c3 nonprofit corporation. It doesn't own the land, it owns some greenhouses and yurts and other buildings here, but interesting relationship, a whole other subject. Lots of staff, lots of people come to work here. The two pregnant cooks, Alyssa and Angela, how's that? That makes the food even better. And they come to work here, they go home, and then lots of people live here. And some of us who are the landowning group also work here, like me and Brock and Kendall. Others, like Katie and David and Susan and Martha and Nick, they work off-site. They don't work for OAC. So they're not part of the circle of decision-making of the Arts and Ecology Center. So that circle is, I was just at the meeting right before this one, every Thursday, 8:30 in the morning, OAC staff meet. We have like 20 people right now. That's the core staff. There's a whole bunch of hourly people. And we divide that into 2 meetings. This is really key. The first meeting is meeting 1. First, we go through, actually I'm going to show you this later on an agenda, an example agenda, so just hold this. So you can see that there's an interface, and the interns are in both, but they're not part of the fundamental decision making of this, but they're here. I won't go through all the different classes. The other thing, interestingly, is the board of directors of the Arts and Ecology Center. And that is by our design, all the people that are owned the LLC, and 3 other people. And really, through outside of the system because they're the disinterested ones. They receive no remuneration. These people are all interested because we lease to these people. We have a lease relationship. So all of us are interested from the IRS's perspective, meaning, especially me, I get paid by the nonprofit, and I'm also renting.